Let's talk to Sarah Di Lorenzo. She has a new gut health book out and she joins me on ABC Radio Sydney. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting. I love this subject.
Do you?
It's interesting.
I'm squeamish.
I know, and that's what is so fascinating about it, because it's one of those subjects that people want to know about, but they're very uncomfortable to talk about by the same time, at the same token. So I've seen clinically for years and years and years just people either really wanting to understand their gut, exactly like you said, or the complete opposite, just so embarrassed. But I always think back to like the COVID lockdowns when people were obsessed with toilet paper, and I thought there's a lot to be said about this and how people really are in tune with their gut and how it impacts quality of life.
Yeah, well, it has a big impact.
Yes.
And Sarah Di Lorenzo, you're a clinical nutritionist. So be honest, do you ask people about their bowel movements the first time you meet them?
Absolutely. Oh. No, in a clinical setting, of course. So not at parties. No. Hi, how's your gut health? No. And so, yeah, definitely, because it does tell me so much as a clinician when someone comes in, even if it's for something as simple as losing weight or for stress or for energy levels, for skin. One of the first things, probably 4 or 5 questions in, I ask them all about their gut health and talk to me about it and to get them to explain it to me. Because for me as a practitioner, I can look at someone and one of the first things I'll look at in a clinical setting is they'll say, so that eczema and dermatitis, how long have you had that for? I've had that for about 4 years. Okay, so how's your gut health? It's not great. I know they're interlinked. I know all of the different links. It is absolutely fascinating. Look, there's a lot of gut books out there, but what I find so interesting is, and even as someone who, in my head, I wrote this book 30 years ago because I healed my own gut. So I've actually sort of, in my own mind over the last 30 years, I have been proactively interested in this. But it was when I saw with gut, when your gut is working well and it's humming away, you've got a regular bowel movement, your flatulence is at bay, everything's good. Yeah, right. You're not farting, you don't have abdominal pain. You feel great and it impacts your quality of life. When people have got gut issues, when they're farting, it even comes down to dating, confidence, when they're bloated, they're distended, they've got abdominal pain. And that was me 30 years ago. I was standing on the Ponte Vecchio in Italy, bent over, crippled in gut pain, thinking, here I am in Italy in my dream place to be.
Because you had too much gluten and spaghetti and pasta?
Correct. And I didn't know and that's when I thought, I'm going to heal my own gut. And that's where my journey really started. And then I know when people's gut's working well, they've got that great transit time and their skin's good, they've got chi and energy levels and stress. But, even menopause, like people don't even think like your gut will impact menopause, your inflammation, cognition, mood, skin health, as I mentioned.
Everything.
Weight. It is.
But it's not just about your bowel, though, is it? It's the whole gut
bacteria.
System. Right. So we shouldn't just focus on that.
No.
It's everything from your stomach down.
It is.
Your small intestine, your large intestine, all of it.
The whole lot. So small intestine, we see conditions like SIBO, which is a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And the people who have SIBO, and that can come from, say, historically, you might have had a course of antibiotics, which wipe out the good and the bad, but then the bad took over and grew. And then in turn, you end up with what you think is FODMAPs. So you go, I can't have that. I've got FODMAPs. When the truth is, it's actually a bacterial overgrowth. So they're linked to that. And people who have SIBO also have a higher incidence of anxiety. But you can, and then it's just, I can go off on tangents everywhere about different areas. And it's what I find fascinating as well is just how is that gut bacteria. So there's words we use, like there's a lot of language, big words, but the microbiome, okay, so that's the habitat. I always say it's easy, just remember microbiome's the habitat. Your microbiota is the residence. It's the bacteria, which is about 90%, which is what we talk about, the good and the bad bacteria. But as well, it's also got some viruses and fungi there. But it's that bacteria that, guess what, weigh about 2.5 kilos. So you and I right now.
That. Yes. That's a lot.
It's a lot. So maybe next time you jump on the scales, you can take off 2 kilos for the bacteria.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been avoiding the scales lately, but anyway. That's for sure. The thing is, in terms of that sort of whole system that you've got in you, you mentioned antibiotics. That's when it can get out of whack.
Yeah.
it is it as simple as you've got a lot of in your gut repair plan. You talk a lot about different foods and why they're good for different the bacteria in your gut.
Yeah.
Is it as simple as being able to just have yogurt every day to stay well and healthy, or is there a lot more involved?
Look, I always say to people with everything it is baby steps, but it is bringing in what we call those probiotic rich foods. So those fermented foods that contain things like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, tofu, tempeh, kombucha, miso. If you can start finding places for those in your diet and just starting to build into it. Because everything about the gut, you just can't go, oh, bam, I'm going to just go and eat a whole lot of fibre and a whole lot of this. Because if you go from a Western diet, which doesn't have a lot of fibre in it, and you overwhelm the gut will respond with things like bloating especially and abdominal pain. So you have to ease into it. So if you wanted to make those small changes, just bringing in a bit of yogurt every day is a great place to start. I've always got sauerkraut. I make my own sauerkraut. I use that. I just throw that. I'll throw that next to eggs in the morning on top of a salad. I'm making the switch instead of having a coffee, maybe have a miso soup. Instead of grabbing maybe a mineral water, grab some kombucha. So you can make these little changes that your gut bacteria will love you for. Now that's called probiotics. And that's live organisms which we want to put into our gut. So, but they have, like everything, they need to be fed, right? So we can put all that good bacteria in. Nothing's going to grow if you don't feed it. So then it comes down to prebiotic rich foods. So the gut bacteria love fibre. Now we as humans can't break it down, but they break it down.
That's their job. They do that for us.
Yes. And they create that magic called a short chain fatty acid. That in turn gives us that intestinal health and all those wonderful lower inflammation, lower risk of disease, all that stuff you can hear me. I'm just bursting
You're passionate about it. I'm
so passionate.
If you have a question, 1300 222 702 is the number. Sarah Di Lorenzo is a clinical nutritionist. Her new book's called The Gut Repair Plan, 4 weeks to better health, and it's all about this. In the 70s, my friend's fun greeting was, how's your bowels, says Mary in Glebe. Okay, you do you. I'm a yogurt evangelist. Got my non-Nigerian dad eating yogurt. He was able to give up the daily laxatives and associated embarrassments just from putting yogurt in his diet.
Wow,
says
fantastic.
One texter. What if you're dairy-free? Things like yogurt aren't an option. You mentioned tempeh, tofu.
Yeah, so just switch out the protein. So
sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut's great, kimchi.
Yep.
I get lots of other options there too.
What about things such as the yeast and the sugar in people's diet, and what the impact that has on their health?
Well, it depends on the person, because our microbiome is all like a fingerprint. It is completely different, so everyone can be impacted differently. But some people can have reactions to that, and then you can look at things like candida, that which is sort of grows in the
lining.
In the top of it's our transverse part of our colon, so and that can cause people a lot of problems too. So
that's genetically determined, lifestyle
diet,
determined,
sugar, all that stuff. So you can. That's a different bacteria, but we want the good bacteria to flourish and produce what's called butyrate. And butyrate is that wonderful substance that gives us that it feeds our colon cells, that makes our intestinal wall nice and strong. So there's no permeability, so we don't get any things like leaky gut syndrome that lead to headaches and feeling unwell and brain fog, and in turn. And the other thing I love about, and when I was writing this book, is there's just so many different bacteria that have different roles. But we have like these wonderful, interesting bacteria, like one of them is called Akkermansia muciniphila. People who have a lot of that, they're the friends you've got who can eat all the time and stay skinny.
Oh, I hate them. No, I don't hate them.
No, you know how you can actually...
How do you get more of that one?
Well, you exercise. Regular exercises. People who do aerobic activity.
That influences your gut bacteria?
Correct. And this
exercise?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Even like you look at the menopause pathway. So when our estrogens move from our liver into our bowel to be eliminated, if you have a healthy diet and your bacteria is good bacteria can reactivate estrogen and keep it moving around us when we're going through our menopause and assist with people with menopausal symptoms. I mean, how fascinating. And stress.
Yes, stress is a big
Gut-brain
factor, isn't it?
axis.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
the
a lot of
enteric
people
nervous
feel their
system.
stress in their gut much more, don't they? And it can really, really have a big impact on them.
We have to think about the brain, and it's connected to our brain's connected by a vagus nerve down to the enteric nervous system that is basically our guts, covers our gut. So you can really see, like, when people are performing or they're talking, doing speeches or public speaking, and they always talk about having to, run to the bathroom, and they have bowel movements, and it's all that connection. But also a lot of that's to do, we know that the different bacteria we have can influence that too. So they call it psychobiotics.
Psychobiotics, wow.
Yeah.
Is it impossible to lose body fat while your gut is bloated, asks Andy.
It is. I always, one of the biggest things, it depends on your diet and it depends what weight loss program you're actually doing. But if that will come down to your absorption. So that's more a nutrient. If you're bloated, you've got to work out why you're bloated. Is it from what you're eating? Is it an intolerance? Do you have like something that you're not aware of, like celiacs, as you mentioned before? How many people don't know they have celiac disease? I mean, there's a lot of different. It's such a broad question. I'd have to do a bit more of a deeper dive into that person's background.
Yeah, exactly.
Better answer.
Well, perhaps a good idea to see a nutritionist. Start with your doctor and get their advice. Cindy has a question about kombucha. She's getting into kombucha.
Yeah.
My question is, I've just started trialling all the different kombuchas and things, buying them in the supermarket and, just sort of the small stores. But they're all fizzy drinks in a can. Are they the ones that you're talking about that are good for you?
I'm talking about the ones, they sit around 17 calories, and you have a good read of how they're made. They've got the proper kombucha starter. I use the ones I wouldn't have the canned ones. The ones I'm familiar with are in a bottle with a screw top.
I know. They're kind of trendy at the moment.
Yeah.
The teenagers have all these ones that are fizzy and trendy, and I think they're full of sugar and not so good for you.
No, I would have a good read of the label first and make sure there's minimal ingredients and it's got that proper starter in it to make the proper,
I know people that make their own. Hey, good luck, Cindy.
Thanks, girls.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your call, Cindy, and for others. Can you get a biome test? A couple of people are asking. Is that a good thing to do?
There is some absolutely incredible tests out there, and I use them all the time in my clinic. There's a great one that I'm using, which is it's called the GMAP, and it's basically, they're expensive, so you're looking, if you want to get them done, they're around... the one I use is $440.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, they're frightfully expensive.
Perhaps talk to your GP, right?
So you can start there with a stool test at the GP, and then you can...
fun.
Yeah.
Oh, the GPs have all the fun jobs, don't they?
Stool test.
Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Sarah.
On ABC Radio Sydney, you're listening to Mornings with Sarah McDonald.